everybody, and welcome back to another update to Rapping with the Rappin. Today is May 19th. Yesterday, Governor Charlie Baker announced his plans to begin to carefully and slowly reopen some of the businesses in our area. And we're here with Rich Hosford. Rich and I are really going to have a discussion about the ramifications of the order from yesterday, because Rich is a good journalist. He's a good reporter, and he's going to be asking some of the questions I think that you would be thinking about. And we'll just kind of go back and forth in a conversation for the next 25 minutes or so. So let me start off by kind of putting a little framework around it. We are still in a very serious situation, battling this coronavirus, this COVID-19 virus, and it hasn't stopped. The issue is that we really can't wait for a vaccine in order to move forward, to begin reopening business, because if we did that, it would take so long that our businesses could never come back again. And so what the governor is doing, and I think it's the right decision, is creating a balance between slowly kind of turning the knob to reopen some businesses while keeping the ability to look and see if there's any kind of a surge in the virus's activity, in the number of people who are becoming infected or hospitalized by the virus. And if he goes slow enough, he believes he can catch some of the negative consequences or ramifications before it gets too bad. And so with that, he's made some decisions, and we've gotten a lot of questions so far, and a lot of it I think can be answered with that point of view in mind, that the governor's really not taking the position, and I agree with this, that let's just turn everything on now, or let's turn on as much as we can. Unless there's a reason not to, let's do it. His position is, let's turn on the things that there's a real reason to turn on, and then follow it by turning on more after that. There have been, and I think it's important that we remind ourselves that we've tested 469,000 people here in Massachusetts, and 87,000 of them from the beginning of the virus, which was only a few months ago, tested positive. The instances of positive, the percentage of the positives as a percentage of the test, is going down and down and down, and that's why we can do this. But remember that there are still almost 6,000 people in Massachusetts who have died from contracting this virus. So this is a serious, serious threat. So we started on phase 2 of our return to the opening of our businesses. And what phase 2 means is that right away, the openings have included essential businesses, including manufacturing and construction. The one that would affect people in our area would be houses of worship. The churches, the synagogues, the mosques, if they want to, can reopen. And what's important is that the restrictions that are placed on these churches, synagogues, and mosques are significant. So you can find this online, but what our religious leaders, our clergy, have to consider in deciding whether they want to open or not is that they can't have things like a coffee hour. They can't, or they're encouraged not to do things like passing a plate for an offering, because people touch that. Even passing money is discouraged. Again, anything that you're touching. And social distancing. So 40% capacity, including clergy, including staff. And they've got to be spread out. So if you've got a house of worship that's fairly small and everyone is 6 feet from each other, side to side and back to front, you may be looking at 24 people, a dozen people being able to fit in that room. And then I would think the person leading the service has to decide, how do I decide who can come and who can't? The virtual opportunity that's being offered is significant. And so many of the clergy people that I've heard from believe that in light of this virus, that they've got the flexibility anyway. So, Rich, what do you think? Do you think that we're going to see a lot of church reopenings, or do you think it's going to be cautious, or have you thought about that?
I have a little bit, and I've talked to a couple pastors in town, and there's sort of a sort of, I don't know, I want to say frustration about sort of a lack of clarity. I don't think it's really directed at anybody, but it seems like that, they are sort of struggling with that same question of like how to do this safely. And just the fact that the option is now out there to reopen is sort of putting pressure on them to kind of decide like, do I? And if so, how to go about it.
Yeah, that's the issue, like you say, because now they're going to hear from some people who believe, I really want to go to church, I really want to go to synagogue or to pray at the mosque. Do it, make this available to me. And they may not feel that they can safely conduct a service that way. And that pressure, I think, is important, that they now are feeling this. Because I think that it seems to me that the governor has done this. That lack of clarity might be somewhat intentional, because I'm not sure. I think his plan is to do this only in instances where it can be done with this distancing safely um, accomplished.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what I'm seeing in response to yesterday's plan as was outlined is sort of and maybe there's no way around it, a sort of a lack of clarity. Like you're saying we can reopen, but we have to maintain all these sort of precautions, and some businesses or some like I said, areas of worship, it's almost impossible to kind of have both at the same time.
Right, which is actually clear. It's just difficult to accomplish.
Right. Okay. Well,
I don't mean to, I'm not jumping on that word. I'm just saying that I think that what it is it's a little inconsistent. You can do this if you can accomplish these, this, but you probably can't accomplish it anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Like, here you go, you can reopen, but you really can't reopen because you can't do it in a way that's safe.
Yeah, and that's we don't have a legislative liaison on the task force that looked into what we could reopen, so I can't say this from firsthand knowledge at all. But in reading it, I think you get the idea that the governor really isn't looking at, let's make it easy to open all these things. He's looking at, if someone wants to open all these things, okay, but here are the conditions, and those conditions are onerous.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is the maintaining the distance, it is the masks, it is all the things. I mean, I think some of the things that are scheduled to reopen on May 25th make sense. Like laboratories, manufacturing, things that are not really part of the interacting with the public, where people, businesses can sort of control just sort of employee behavior and not so much the interaction with regular people.
Right.
But some of them, I think, are going to be a little bit difficult. Even like what most people want, which is hair salons and barber shops, which everybody's desperate for.
Me among them.
Right. I think there can be ways to do it. Sort of keeping people separate, putting up barriers, things like that. Everybody wearing masks. But some of the other places, retail and everything, have to sort of, at first it's going to start off with curbside, but then, eventually when they start to reopening, we'll probably have the same restrictions that grocery stores do. Maintaining aisles in a certain direction, things like that.
Yeah, curbside retail is going to be difficult because I think people, when they want to pick out something.
Yeah, clothes shopping will be hard. I mean, you want to try something on, but I mean, I think we're gonna have to get back into that mindset. Like, you're gonna try on a piece of clothing, you don't know if other people tried it on before you.
Exactly. It may very well be that you see the sample, and then the store sends it to you the next day,
right,
or something like that. And the hair, I mean, the barbers and the hairstylists, that's a licensed profession, so they're used to standards of cleanliness that they keep. And certainly, like you said, there are a number of people out there that just need a haircut. So I think the governor might again, I'm not in the room, but he might be looking at, first of all, the group of people that are affected by it being the customers, but also that maybe he's looking at, I can rely on a profession that's used to restrictions, keeping it clean anyway. And like you said, if you can do it 6 feet apart or one at a time, however it works, and keep people out of the waiting room, yeah, you've still got contact with a hairstylist and the customer. But for the most part, the hairstylist is usually behind the customer when you're getting
Right.
a haircut. Um, I don't know this. I'm only guessing, but the manicures, the nail people are not open till later, and people have asked, and I don't know the answer, but it seems to me that when people are having a manicure, that person's right in your, they're looking at you. It's done a little different.
Yeah, but I mean, it does seem possible that just because the practice has always been, holding your hand out in front of you to get a manicure, it doesn't mean it can't be hold your hand to your side. I mean,
Yeah,
seems like a kind of a workaround that shouldn't be that difficult to kind of overcome.
yeah. And one of the issues that we have in the legislature, that I have in the legislature, really was that there could be, especially now that decisions have been made, it could be more of a discussion of, okay, this is how we made this distinction. um, it's left up to us to figure out the logic, and that's a question that's been raised. We've had some people. Summer is coming, and so there are summer camps. That's on the list. Day camps are on the list. People need places to bring their kids. First of all, to get out of the house, but also as they return to work, they satisfy a function of keeping your kids safe, um, either during the day or longer than that. But how about all of the businesses that operate um, activities for kids that go on for an hour or two? That's not on this initial list, and I'm not sure why. It just serves a different function.
Yeah, I mean, one of the questions that I had, especially with children, is it's easy to tell an adult, stay apart from each other. It's harder when kids are like in a group to kind of, I think, have them maintain distancing, have them sort of, keep those safe practices going, because I think they're sort of by nature sort of drawn to roughhousing and physically being close to each other.
Right. Plus, it's part of their maturity. It's part of their development as children to be together.
Mm,
I mean, that being in that kind of community, that kind of side. That's why kindergarten is so important at that age. That's why preschool is so important, among other things. You want kids, including only children, to be out there with their friends, and so these things do serve a purpose, and hopefully we'll continue to get there. One thing that hopefully we see are people continuing to respect the social distancing and the wearing the mask, knowing that we do this for the benefit of each other, of our community. It's not necessarily because I don't choose to wear a mask. It's that whether or not I choose to protect the community. Because if we can keep these instances down, we'll move on to phase two that much sooner. The governor has said 3 weeks at a minimum, but he'll look at what's going on. So it's still up to us to be careful, stay home when we can as we start to be able to get out a little bit more. And then phase two can lead to phase three, the vigilant step that they call it, which is the step that we'll get to do a little bit more. Just keeping that sort of when we cook and you keep under the boil, keep
right.
watch that dial so it doesn't go and boil. Well, Rich, I appreciate the time that you've taken here to talk about some of these issues, and there's really a lot to talk about, but we'll continue to provide updates here on Rappin with the Rep. And
Well, one more thing, if you don't mind.
absolutely.
It's Burlington, obviously you Bedford and part of Wilmington as well, but restaurants is a huge issue.
Yeah.
Where do you see, that going? Stage reopening, less capacity. I mean, it's sort of like the question for our area is like, how do we get restaurants kind of going again?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Good question, and thank you for that. So restaurants are in the phase two plan by the governor, which is to say that somewhat maybe 3 weeks after the 25th of May, which is when phase one fully kicks in. So we're talking about mid-June. Then, like you said, limited capacity, and outdoor seating. So it'll be up to Burlington also to weigh in on the opportunity for outdoor seating. I'm not the Board of Health, and I'm not
Sure.
the town's deciding body, but just logic, which at least there's the opportunity in Burlington, in the suburbs, to have outdoor seating, because you could take some parking spaces. And since you're going to have limited capacity anyway, you could use those to place tables and distance them. I wonder, first of all, people have to decide that they want to venture out and go back into the restaurants. It's very important for our economy that restaurants survive. But you've got the idea that we've got to continue to wear face masks and then eat at a restaurant.
Difficult proposition.
Yeah. We'll have to figure out how that works. But it's another opportunity for us to be out in society with each other and begin to sort of live as we did before.
Yeah, I mean,
closer to as we did before.
I think a lot of the takeaway from the announcement yesterday is, we don't really have all the answers yet. Sort of monitor the situation and kind of see how things kind of play out in the next month or two.
Yeah.
Sort of, make decisions as more information comes in.
That's absolutely right. We can't really, well, we can, but hopefully we won't make decisions that are in some instances completely impossible. We're talking about how do you open a place of worship when you have so few people in there that you have to actually close the door to some people. How do you tell a person who wants to worship, no, we're full? I don't know how you do that. When the restaurants are so similar situation, hopefully we don't have, for example, 25% capacity. We may, but then the restaurant owner is saying, gee, I have to still pay the rent now because I'm fully open and I have expenses to meet. And if I can only use so many tables, 25% of my capacity, and I have so many hours that I'm open, then I don't know that I can make it profitable.
Right.
So
they depend on filling up their seats and then turning them over rapidly as it is. So
yeah, it's a math exercise, right? Yeah. So right. So unless takeout is really become successful for them and they can supplement what they're having takeout and eat in, that could be. But I'm hoping that because our restaurants are so important to us in Burlington and in Bedford and Wilmington too, I'm hoping that we can find that balance that lets them at least some break even somewhat for the very short term, and then become profitable again as they once were.
Yeah.
So
so much depends on it. So it's the businesses themselves. It's also the taxes that come into the town. That so much of what we sort of have as far as services depends on that sort of revenue coming in.
Yeah, it is an ecosystem. It all plays off each other. Rich, thank you very much for coming on to Rapping with the Rep. Folks, thank you for tuning in. We'll have another update soon. In fact, we're expecting Bob Coughlin from Mass Bio to talk about all of the things that the Massachusetts Life Sciences companies are doing to address the coronavirus and the vaccines and treatments and all of that, but also the Burlington, Bedford, and Wilmington companies that are really in the forefront of it. So thank you, everybody. This is Representative Ken Gordon here with Rich Hosford from BCAT. Thank you for tuning in to Rappin' with the Rep.